back for week 2 of the walkthrough, which is previewing week 1 of the season, but we won't get into the week 0.
It adds up nicely.
Well, it's the second edition of the show, and we're here to chat about some area football, some of the top performers from the previous week, hand out some awards, and a preview of some of the coming week's games, and we're going to do all of that right here. And we're going to start by talking about the high school football media poll that came out on Tuesday. Once again, we have several teams in there, and starting out at 4A, there's been a little change of which team is ranked, and North Augusta got in at number 10, and Southaven fell out, but they're still receiving votes, and you got to see North Augusta pick up a big win, which catapulted them into this.
Yeah, you know, we see kind of a shift there, just with one team winning, one team losing. I don't know necessarily how much stock the voters put into North Augusta's win over Thompson, simply because I don't think if you're in this area you understand how big of a win that was. I know a lot of the other areas in the state, they don't really get into football on the other side of the river the way that, well, we have no choice but to do it. So, you know, North Augusta at 10, I mean, they don't care either way. They're more worried about where they are at the end of the season. Everyone is. This is more, you know, for our for us to fill some airtime.
Yeah, it gives us something to talk about.
Right. You know, 10, it's fair. You know, they're glad to, I'm sure, just have, you know, a little bit of positive vibes heading into, you know, another big game for them on the other side of the river. Southaven, on the other hand, one of those situations, I think, where it was a game where we're going to learn a lot about both of the teams, just with both of them replacing a lot of key pieces. One of those things where I think you just had to move teams in rankings somehow. Greenwood, of course, wasn't even on the radar in 5A before that win. They're receiving votes now. Yeah. So just a reactionary thing.
Yeah. And down in 3A level, Thurman jumped a spot actually up to number 5 after an impressive win over Saluda. They had some big-time athletes perform, and we're going to talk about that a little later, but they got a little more respect in the poll and jumped up to the number 5 spot.
Yeah, and you know, we've seen some strong Thurman teams in the past take a nice win over Saluda to start the season and then turn it into something nice. You know, I feel like that's a win that Antoine Hillary just likes having that one. After a little bit of trickery a couple years ago that they played on him. I'm going to keep bringing it up, but I'll keep bringing it up. But I think that's a win that they're happy to have. I mean, Saluda's a big-time program. Yeah. You know, that's a win that, I mean, you've got to feel good about. Obviously, the voters recognized it. Yeah. Maybe a little something else that happened above them that influenced that as well. Oh, yeah. But, you know, the quality win, that's one they'll take 10 times out of 10.
Yeah, a little shake-up in the rankings with Emerald getting beat by a 2A school kind of helps the other team slide up.
Well, and it's an Emerald team that we're going to see later on. You know, one of those things where, you know, you kind of look at when those preseason polls come out, and you can't help but notice, you know, this team's on our schedule, they're ranked this high, you know, and then you wonder, you know, will they justify that? You see an Emerald team on 3rd in the state, and they give up 62 points in their opener, you know. It proves that heading into that first week, we don't know anything. Yeah. We really don't.
And down at 2A level, this is one thing I think we got right, maybe.
We knew this one. We knew
Barneveld is number 2, fresh off their big-time win over Williston. Still aren't receiving any first place votes.
I think you got to give them at least one. And I'll say again, if Hartsville can get a vote in 4A to keep South Point from being unanimous, then you know what? Give Barnwell one. I mean, I don't have a vote. Can we have like a little half vote for me on the side?
A half first
put me down for Barnwell.
They looked impressive as we expected, and so I think they'll probably stay there for a while. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that.
Yeah, they'll only give up that spot when they want to.
Pretty much. Down at Class A, there was some more shaking up, if you will, and we have several schools ranked. Rich Spring actually held their position.
And that's fair. Yeah. That's fair. I mean, Rich Spring Minetta went up. I mean, this is what they do every year. They play those Class 2A traditional rivals of theirs. And, you know, when you're a Class A school and you go up to Batesburg, Leesville, and you lead for a good percentage of that game and have a chance at the end where if you score, you're going for 2 and for the win. I mean, you can't. I know we're reactionary in that first week a team loses. Some people decide they have to drop them anyway. That one, I mean, you had to keep them there.
Yeah, and the biggest jump from the area team was actually Williston Elko, or not Williston Elko, Wagner Sally, I'm sorry, messing up here, but Wagner Sally jumped up to the number 5 position. And
well, it was influenced by what Williston Elko did in a way, because Williston Elko, of course, was ahead of Wagner Sally, and the voters dropped Williston Elko after that loss to Barneveld, and Wagner Sally, again, goes to Pelion, faces Pelion, and just completely shuts them down. And that's a thing when you go up 2 classifications and pitch a shutout, the voters notice.
Yeah, Wagner hasn't playing up a classification again, so probably have a chance to gain some more respect from the voters.
Willie Fox and Cody, they have no desire to play Class A programs in the non-region. That's not going to help them anymore. That's not what they're trying to do these days.
Keep your family comfortable all year long and save money on your utility bills with a preferred client service program from Holley Heating and Air. Holley's service program includes priority service, no overtime charges, 15% off all repairs, plus a regular duct system inspection. And should you suddenly need us, we're here for you with emergency service 24/7, 365 days a year. So turn to the experts, Carrier, and the comfort pros at Holley Heating and Air. A name you know, a name you trust.
Now we're going to hand out some game balls for the top performers from the previous week's action, and I'm going to start out with some guys from Strong Thurman who had a pretty decent game. And for starters, we have quarterback Jaquan Harris, who a lot of questions about how he was going to progress this season, and he came out, went 11 for 14 for 222 yards, passed for a touchdown, and ran for one. So he had a pretty solid day out there in a victory over Saluda. And also helping him out on the field there was running back Stanley Hill. He came into the game, and as Hillary always kept saying that he was really looking forward to what he had to offer in replacing Jaquan Edwards, and he showed up and ran the ball 17 times for 155 yards and a touchdown. So it's a pretty solid day for him as well against the Saluda.
Yeah, and we go from talking about replacing the production from a senior who did a lot of things at Strong Thurman. We talk about the same thing over at North Augusta. Someone was going to have to gain those yards that Darius Gibson did. Brian Thomas said, we've got a few guys that can do this. We'll kind of throw them out there, see what happens. Right away, Jakari Buxton is our guy from North Augusta. He goes for 167 yards and a touchdown, and a big fourth quarter drive there for North Augusta where they go 93 yards. He had carries of 28 and 38 yards to get them out of inside their own 10-yard line to keep things going. So that was really, kind of a big capper for the Yellow Jackets. The big starter, though, Kyrie Collier, the linebacker, opening kickoff, fields a ball that I'm not 100% sure he was meant to. Just snags that thing out of the air, 65 yards to the house. And, we're 10 seconds into the season and North Augusta has a lead. Just for fun, had 16 total tackles to go with it.
Not a bad day. And speaking of fast starts, my other team that I have here, Barneveld, they jumped out to a huge early lead, and a big part of that was the passing game and what they were able to do. And giving one out to Craig Pender here, who went 6 for 6, and about half of those passes, or exactly half of those passes, were for a touchdown. Threw 3 of those, and had a big offensive game for the team, and helped lead them to a victory. And on the receiving end of several of those passes was Ty Frazier, who Garrett says is always expected to make a big play when he's out there on the field. So we'll be looking to see that again this week. He caught 3 passes for 95 yards and a touchdown. And the other guy has been a guy that's been on defense, or been more of a star defensively as a freshman. I think he was one of the leaders in the area in interceptions. But he came out, had a big offensive game, had several yards for them on the ground and receiving, and ran for a touchdown and caught a touchdown pass. So Dalion Creech will be getting one as well.
Yeah, Creech, one of our guys that I think we always look at to be atop that interception board, also getting it done offensively. So doing things maybe not necessarily out of position, but adding something to his resume. That's what our next game ball recipient did. We're talking about Jesse Sanders over at South Aiken, a guy who made his name, as a wide receiver, really a go-to receiver in that South Aiken offense. It belongs to him now at the quarterback position. Outcome wasn't what they wanted over at South Aiken, but certainly nothing for him to hang his head about. He gets 100 yards rushing and both of South Aiken's touchdowns against Greenwood. Now we see another guy who, really had his hand in a lot of different places for Midland Valley, and that's DeAndre Pearson, a guy who total yards, we're looking at right around 250 when you add up, running the football, catching it, returning kicks, even passing the ball. Did a lot for him, scored 2 touchdowns. Again, in a losing effort, but showing signs that this is a guy that is going to be a force to be reckoned with no matter where he gets the football. And we'll close things out with one of those guys who opened things up for his team, and that is Taekwon Jerry over at Wagner Sally. Graded out at 94%, and head coach Willie Fox told me that they don't grade the linemen as easy as a lot of other programs do, so a 94% there is a really, really strong performance. Opened up 200 plus rushing yards for the War Eagles, and Taekwon Jerry, a guy who, pound for pound, the strongest player on that roster, didn't miss a workout all summer in addition to, having a job, and we're seeing that pay off, right out of the gates.
Yeah, and one of these guys up here has won another honor this week, so when we come back, we'll hand out the Chick-fil-A Fan Favorite Player of the Week award, and it'll go to one of these guys up on the board. We'll let you know when we come back.
Keep your family comfortable all year long and save money on your utility bills with a preferred client service program from Holley Heating and Air. Holley's service program includes priority service, no overtime charges, 15% off all repairs, plus a regular duct system inspection. And should you suddenly need us, we're here for you with emergency service 24/7, 365 days a year. So turn to the experts, Carrier, and the comfort pros at Holley Heating and Air. A name you know, a name you trust.
And the first recipient of our prestigious
this is big.
Chick-fil-A Fan Favorite Player of the Week is Barneveld quarterback Craig Pender. He had a good showing in the vote that propelled him to winning some Chick-fil-A for a week. So congratulations to him, and we'll be making a trip out to Barneveld to kind of give him his award. Maybe before Thursday night's game, actually.
Maybe, yeah. That one, of course, being moved up, we'll have to hit the road a little bit faster.
Yeah. But getting into some more football action, we're going to start actually with a game that wasn't moved up, thankfully. It's our game of the week.
Yeah, you never want that.
Midland Valley will take on Grovetown down in Graniteville, and I spoke with Coach Jenkins earlier, and he said he saw a lot of promising things from his team in the first week, playing another school from Georgia, Lakeside. But this Grovetown team, he expects them to come in and give them a challenge, but he thinks that if they do everything that they're supposed to and correct some of the small mistakes they made, they've shuffled some things on special teams to keep some of their bodies fresh. They think they can hang in this one, and he's expecting to see more big things from DeAndre Pearson, and he's expecting Harper Puckett to kind of shine a little bit more too. He's really expecting him to have a big game at some point and kind of burst onto the scene, if you will.
Yeah, and it's a Midland Valley team. I think we've grown accustomed to them over the last few years as being prone to offensive outbursts. And you can tell, even in a game against Lakeside where maybe they didn't score 40 points, you can still see there's the potential there for them to put up a lot of yards, a lot of points with a lot of different guys. DeAndre Pearson being a key example of that he can put up, all-purpose around 250 yards and score twice. I mean, that's a huge weapon for them. And we're looking at a Grovetown team here that went 7-5 a year ago. They get a big transfer at running back, so the defense will be tested there, and we'll just, it's another across the river challenge for Midland Valley.
Yeah, it definitely is. And another thing to look out for on the defensive side, Jenkins is really big on Des Curry, and he thinks he's going to do some great things. He said he did a lot of things for them that won't show up in the stats on the stat sheet, he said he played every snap the last game and played on special teams and she still had several tackles for loss. So he could pose a problem for the Grovetown offense if should it come to that.
Yeah, and he's a guy that I think that whether it's earning more trust or just with the way that he's playing, I mean, he's earning himself more responsibilities.
Yeah, definitely. But continuing to some of the other games in the area, there's a big one with one of our other Class 4A schools that's hosting another area school, Aiken Standard Thurman, which should be a big game in terms of turnout and everyone looking at that one.
Yeah, and we've had a few examples in the last several years of Aiken Standard Thurman games maybe turning out a little more exciting than people thought they would be going in. I'm sure, over across the street, that's, what they're hoping for after what had to have been, I mean, a pretty tough loss to take in the season opener. But, we talked about, the performance that Thurman had against Saluda. Anytime you get a win over a 4A program, I mean, just from the numbers standpoint alone, I mean, it's something that gives you a boost. And I know from like those past games, Standard Thurman's not going to take them lightly. They don't care what the losing streak is at right now. They don't care that it's still a winless head coach over at Aiken. They're not going to take them lightly.
Definitely, I don't think so either. And they're coming in trying to keep that momentum that they gained last week. I also feel like in the second half, Aiken last week started doing some things right, so that could carry over and we might see an interesting game in this one.
Yeah, it's an Aiken team that, we talked about it coming into the season. This is a group of guys that, endured a really tough season. These are the guys who stuck it out. These are the guys, who believe in each other. That can spark at any time, and it almost, you get the sense from them that they're just waiting for that first one. And when they get that one, who knows?
Yeah. And another team looking to bounce back from a loss last week, South Aiken, will be playing Lakeside this week. And obviously Lakeside played against Midland Valley, but it's a little bit of a different beast that they're coming into this week. But what are you kind of expecting to see from a South Aiken team that kind of has now lost and looking to bounce back early in the year?
I think, first and foremost, it's going to be a pride thing. This is a team over at South Aiken that was very proud of a 15-game home winning streak that Greenwood just snapped. Now, like Coach Chris Hamilton told me earlier today, he kind of told them, well, now we start another one and see if we can get to 16. That kind of thing. It's just going to be a chance to correct some mistakes, some things that are really uncharacteristic of the way that South Aiken likes to play football. Maybe that's because, they're breaking in a lot of new guys over there. Maybe it's because, didn't have the same amount of preseason preparation as some other programs. Hamilton knew there were going to be mistakes. And in some cases, those were ones that may have ultimately cost them the game. So it will be getting back to the style of football that we've grown to expect from Chris Hamilton teams at South Aiken.
Yeah, there's a couple moments there in that game where if the little things had gone differently, a receiver running through a route and catching a ball as opposed to kind of stopping and finding it, and the small things that kind of would have made that game different because South Aiken got back into it, and it was just a matter of who was going to make the plays in the second half.
And, most importantly, like you mentioned, that type of mistake, a receiver just, missing out on a route, that's a fixable mistake. Yeah. And I talked with Willie Fox over at Wagner Sally earlier this week, and he was saying there have been some times where he's had some mistakes that weren't fixable. You don't want those as a coach. When you have the ones that are fixable, whether it's going to come from, just more repetitions, those are the ones that you're okay with having, because at least there that you're going to get back to the way you're supposed to be doing things.
Yeah. One of South Aiken's region mates, if you will.
We can call them rivals.
Yeah, that's true. North Augusta has another big game this week, and they're looking to build on that momentum, and as you said earlier, maybe jump a little bit higher in rankings. Yeah. They have a big one against Evans, and you saw this game last year, And
yes, I did.
Obviously, it's
very
much different this year.
It's different. I mean, you look at two teams that lost a lot of stuff. Two teams that won region championships last year and then lost a lot. In the case of both North Augusta and Evans, you're graduating almost all of your offensive production. Now, Evans, slightly different story because their star quarterback transferred.
Yeah.
So, obviously, North Augusta will not have to face Demetrius Taylor again at Evans because they faced him last week at Thompson. Yeah. So there are going to be a lot of differences. I spoke with head coach Brian Thomas, and he said, you know what, it's going to be a lot of young guys, a lot of new faces. But he knows that Coach Lackey over at Evans is going to have them ready to go, so his guys need to be ready to go too.
Yeah, definitely. I think they will be ready, and it should be a good game to catch.
I don't know if I can ever drag it out of Coach Thomas or out of anybody over there now, whether these games against Georgia schools maybe mean a little bit more just for some bragging rights. Some of the guys on the team last year told me, though, that they definitely get a little more hyped for a chance to beat up on a Georgia school.
Moving down to the Class 2A and a slash game, as we call it.
We got a slash game, that's right.
You have Silver Bluff finally getting out on the field. Head coach D'Angelo Bryan is eager to get out there and see what his boys can do.
That's got to be tough though when it's your first year as head coach at the school where you were a legend and you get the week 1 bye. Yeah. As if the anticipation wasn't already enough, you don't play the first week of the season.
Just building up more and more buzz to finally get out there.
I don't know how much more of that they can handle over in Petticoat Junction. I mean, they were probably ready to line that thing up on DeSoto Drive last week.
Yeah.
Ready in July, probably.
Earlier when I was speaking to him, he said there's a lot of community excitement, as you can expect. And you have a Williston team that's coming in looking to bounce back. But from what Brian said, he's expecting them to be physical and give them a big challenge. But he likes what he has out there on the field and is ready to play in front of the chains. That was his big thing. They need to be in front of the chains and kind of get some of those drives churning, and he thinks they'll be in a good position.
Yeah, always good to get out there and finally hit somebody else for a change too. Some teams just have to wait a little longer than others. But this is a matchup of programs that are, similar in that, that's just rich football tradition. Yeah. Even more similar in that you have got alumni as head coaches on both sides. So Derek Youngblood and D'Angelo Bryant are really able to, share a lot. Yeah. That they're, and they're both at programs where the expectations are so high. So they can share the good stuff, they can share the bad stuff, because they hear about it all the time. So it's interesting there. It's already interesting because it's Williston Elko and Silver Bluff. So this is a matchup that really, the Williston Elko kids, they really look forward to this opportunity to play somewhere with so much history. As soon as you make that right onto DeSoto, you head up the hill, you see the signs, all the region championships, all the state championships. That's the kind of tradition that anyone in this state would want. So this is something they get excited for. Williston Elko kids don't need any more reason to get excited for a football game. But, this is it for them. This is another chance for them. And it's also a chance for them to kind of get something back after last week. You had a lot of kids go out there for Williston Elko that maybe played behind a Jasper Lott or played behind an Evander Tyler who didn't necessarily have to take those first team reps in a big environment. And it kind of snowballed on them a little bit. This is their chance to get out there again and get back to, we said it with Southaven, we'll say it with Williston Elko, get back to doing things the way Williston Elko does. And this is a program that I think takes more advantage or takes better advantage of these non-region games than anyone else in our area. The way that they're scheduled, the way that they learn from them, the way that they apply them to the teams they'll face later in the season, no one does that better than Williston Elko. So regardless of what happens in this one, it is going to benefit them so much moving forward.
Yeah, we're going to continue our 2A versus 1A matchup.
More slashes.
More slashes. Have Barneveld team that's in a rivalry game with a Blackville Hilda team. Big game for the Barneveld area. And speaking to Garrick earlier, they're excited over there. They're looking to build on some of the things they did last week. He still wants to see a little more from that offensive line, if you can believe that.
I can believe it from Dwayne Garrick. Yes, I can.
So he's still looking to see some improvements there, but overall he was pleased with their performance and hopes it continues. And he's really excited to get out there and try to do it against a Barneveld team that he said is fast. They move around a lot on defense. They run kind of a wing offense, so it's a different challenge. But I'm sure Garrick is used to that a little bit. So.
Well, there's that, and then there's also, I mean, it's a Barneveld County rivalry.
Yeah.
You know, it's stuff that I think you could throw any offense in front of Dwayne Garrick, and he's seen it, and he's run it, and he's won with it.
Yeah.
So, you know, maybe some unknowns just from, you know, having some new coaches at Blackville Hilda. Yeah. Maybe bringing a little bit of the Bamberg style, but that's not anything new to Barneveld either.
Yeah.
You know, no need for anything to get them more excited than what they are to get out and play. And you talked to Coach Garrick about just what, you know, those Barneveld County rivalries mean. Yeah. I mean, these are big-time football games. You know, the whole community gets into these.
Pretty much. And Garrick's been around for a while. He's actually started at Blackville, went to Williston, ended up Barneveld twice.
He's seen it all. He's seen it all.
So he knows how big this one is, and he's excited to get out there on the field on Friday night.
Yeah.
But one more 2A and 1A.
Keep the slash games coming.
Might as well just keep it going. We have Wagner Sally taking on Fox Creek in a big game. Fox Creek, another team that set out last week and is eager to get out on the field. And Wagner Sally looking to continue rolling and knocking off the non-region bigger schools, if you will.
Yeah, and you know, when we talk Wagner Sally, we talk defense. They're so good defensively. And their calling card defensively, what they like to do is take away what the opponent does well. They did that with Pelion. Pelion wanting to pound the ball with Jeremiah Green. They did that. You face a Fox Creek team that has not one but two dual threat quarterbacks they can use. And then it starts to become a little more difficult defensively because you're talking about staying disciplined enough to keep the quarterback in the pocket. You don't want him getting outside.
Yeah.
You're also talking about playing well enough in coverage that he's not going to beat you with his arm either. It's something that, I mean, Willie Fox told me, they're going to have to be really good to win this game. Now, Fox Creek, a little more of a wild card just because we haven't seen them yet. They've had that extra week to prepare after just a brutal preseason. Went and played some physical football teams, got beat up a little bit. It's the kind of thing that benefits them in the long run. It's an offense where, as Coach Derek Quinn told me before the season started, they're getting to know each other real well. They're figuring some things out. They've got playmakers. Defensively, he says that's maybe the most athletic they've been on that side of the ball since he's been there. You know, they've got strength on strength on strength on the defensive side of the ball. Where that becomes interesting when you play Wagner Sally is, how do you line up against them? You know, Willie Fox and Wagner Sally, they're becoming what we had with Al Lown at Silver Bluff in that they're the one school here who does things differently than everyone else. So when it's time to play them, it's hard to game plan for them. Because not only are you trying to cram that into a short period of time, granted Fox Creek has a little more time to figure that out, but you're also trying to scout for that with personnel that don't know how to run it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really interesting, and that's how you end up, if you're Wagner Sally offensively, you get some defenses thrown at you that you don't know what's going on. So it'll be a really interesting matchup. You know, we're going to learn a lot about Fox Creek regardless, just because we haven't seen them yet.
And one of the other 2A, 1A matchups.
Keep them coming.
Doesn't feature two area teams.
Still a slash.
And this week, I think I'm going to once again try to get Cal Dawson to make a pick on air.
Not going to happen.
And go with Ridge Spring Manetta, because I'm going to do that again. And I was very close last week to pulling off, so Ridge Spring, I need you to get this win for me.
Yeah, I still won't do it. My style of picking games will not change. It is absolute last minute. I'll write it on a bar napkin if I have to. I don't want anyone else seeing my picks before they go final. See, what the people don't know, and I'm going to tell them right now, is that this guy gets all of the picks in his email. If he hadn't made the picks yet, and say he sees my picks, he goes, oh man, I'm 2 games clear of the field right now, which is where we stand. I go, you know what, I need to change things up here. That's why I wait till the very last minute. It's sabotage is what it is.
I usually know who I'm picking like halfway through the week. Wait for some information to make me change my mind. Sometimes I still don't change my mind, but nonetheless.
Either way, you'll roll with Rich Spring Mineta, and that's not at all a bad pick. Rich Spring Mineta, I mean, gave Batesburg-Leesville all that Batesburg-Leesville could handle a week ago. Probably will do the same to Saluda. And the defense will keep Rich Spring Mineta in the game regardless. No matter how long it takes the offense to just get in sync, the defense will keep them in games. That's not a surprise. They shut out 6 teams last year. They gave up, I think, the second fewest points of all Class A teams. The defense will keep them in games. I don't care who they're playing. It's just, does the offense figure it out this week? Sounds like you think they will.
I think they will. I feel like Hayden Cherry is going to figure it out there. Get the offense going a little bit.
Well, they've got, you know what, they've got experience on the offensive line. They've got guys who've started a bunch of big games there. You've got guys, you know, at your wide receiver spots or whatever we want to call where Jerry Tyler's going to line up because he can do all of it.
Just put him out there and put the football in his hands.
You know, you get, you know, guys like him, Jason Robinson, Johnny Freeman. You Collier Sullivan back there running the football. Reagan Cherry gets in there and runs it if he has to. Brendan Frazier gets in there at fullback. I mean, they've got so many guys that have produced and they've done it in big games that it's just a matter of, when they get that timing right.
Yeah. And the Saluda team is coming off a little bit of a tough loss. Thurman kind of went out there and moved the ball any way they wanted to, pretty much. And so I think Rich Spring will be able to also capitalize on some similar things.
Yeah, and so I know, for all of our devoted followers out there who keep up with our coverage every week of every season, you might be thinking right now, wait a minute, didn't Rich Spring Mineta host Saluda last year too? Yes, they did. With realignment, of course, we end up with some odd scheduling. Saluda was going to have an uneven number of home games and road games. Would have been to their benefit this year, which then, of course, is to their detriment next year. Decided to just go ahead, get it right there at 5-5, and it's a chance. We talk. I like to joke about this with Kenny Lipsey because he's the AD now. But this is a legitimately big deal. That's a big gate they're going to draw for this game Friday night. I mean, that's a big rivalry. Schools that aren't very far away from each other. And, I mean, every time that Rich Spring Mineta goes up against Batesburg, Leesville, and Saluda, they have a chance to make some history with a win.
Yeah. I'm saying they're going to do it this week.
Mark it down.
Mark it down. Well, I want to thank you for joining us for another week of the walkthrough.
The walkthrough where we just sit here.
Basically, maybe we'll get out.
We stood up for we stand up for game balls.
Yeah. Stood up for game balls. We may start throwing some stuff. I don't know. Have to check with HR and see what the safety requirements are.
Yeah, we'll have to go over the handbook and make sure that we don't get in any trouble.
We'll see. Maybe I shouldn't put that in the walkthrough, but we will catch you guys next week for another episode, and look forward to seeing you out there on the sidelines this week.